Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with Deanie Allen. Deanie, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing great. Absolutely wonderful.
Well, let me tell you why I wanted to talk to you, because you represent a group of women out here in the northeast part of Houston that is working your butts off as progressive Democrats trying to make sure that Texas become blue. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? How did you get politically involved? And let's try to make this something that other people around the country can feel, I can do it, I want to do it.
Okay. I grew up in the segregated South. I had a great friend in college who was African American. We tried to integrate a dance hall and promptly got thrown out. Luckily, we were safe, but I faithfully voted Democrat. I just was not involved. And then 2016 happened, and I was horrified. I always knew the Electoral College was really quirky and people didn't understand it and that this was a possibility. And so I got involved in Indivisible. I got involved in Liberal Ladies Who Lunched, and it wasn't activist enough for me. And luckily out here in Kingwood-Humble area in Northeast Houston, we have a group called the Lake Houston Area Democratic Volunteers. I got plugged into that. I did door knocking. And once COVID hit, I did phone calling. And once COVID hit, I thought, I just have to do something. We cannot let this travesty of justice go. But someone who won by 77,000 votes is totally and completely turning into fascist dictator. I'm sorry, that's what I see.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I want to sort of modify something for our audience. He won 3 states that gave him an electoral college majority by 77,000 votes, but he lost the election by 6 million votes. And with that, he believes he has the right to appoint Supreme Court judges and do things that are completely anathema to most of the country's desires. So I think we have to make sure and let people understand that that their opposition to Trump isn't coming from a disgruntled minority, but from an active majority that now says we have to get engaged. And one of the reasons I like what you're doing is you're all over the place with regards to getting things done. Tell us a little bit. Let's before we get into some physical issues with you, let's go ahead and get into what exactly were you doing before you kind of got stymied at home?
Before we got sidelined at home, I was phone calling. And one of the things we do is we just call people and say, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? And we mark them, so we code them. Anyone who votes in an election, the Secretary of State has information that, yes, you did vote. So if people voted in a Democratic primary, we figure probably Democrat. So we would call them and see, are you a Democrat? And we say, great. And then when it was time for an election, like in the 2018 election, we called up all those known Democrats and said, please go vote. Please go vote. We knocked on doors and we said, please go vote. Please go vote. We registered voters. I'm a deputy voter volunteer registrar. But then COVID hit. And we thought, oh my goodness, we can't knock on doors because a person-to-person conversation is the most important thing. So all over Harris County, Texas, which is what Houston is in, our groups have dropped off almost 100,000 door hangers on apartments in underserved communities. And that door hanger said, this is a registration to register to vote. You can fill this out and mail it in to the Secretary of State and you'll be registered to vote. And in Texas, every time you move, you're not registered anymore. So we were part of that group that would go to apartment complexes. We would not talk to anyone. We wore gloves and masks and we hung these on apartment doors. And occasionally people would say, what do you do? And we would say, we're distributing voter registration forms. And they would say, great. But I've also been calling actively. I'm a precinct captain, which means in my little part of my town, my area, my job is to encourage people to go vote. I've been texting people to please, would you consider calling? Because I call people on the phone. I call for specific candidates and said, would you vote for this candidate? This is why I think you should vote for her. And now we are going to move into calling known Democrats to say, you signed up for a vote by mail ballot. Please be on the lookout for it. Please fill it in. And closer to the election, we'll be calling known Democrats and saying, please go vote. Please go vote. Now more than ever, please go vote. What's your plan? When are you going to vote? Because if you ask someone, when are you going to vote? That really makes them think, okay, I'm a specific plan, as opposed to, yeah, I'm going to go vote, because they get involved in their job and all of a sudden it's the day before election and they haven't voted.
Now, Deanie, I also call you a fisher of people, because not only do you work with trying to get people to vote on an individual basis, but you actually go out there and get other people. In other words, you duplicate yourself. And what that's really called is geometric progression. What that means then is that you multiply yourself by so many times that you get things done by making a whole lot more of you. So tell us a little bit about how successful you have been with that just in the recent days.
Just in the last 5 days, I have been calling candidates. Now, this summer it happened that I called and I reached at least 5 people. And I said, are you a Democrat? And I got this response quite vociferously. I've always been a Republican. I've voted Republican all my life. But doggone it, in this primary, I voted for every single Democrat. I am so disgusted with what's going on. And that was in the primary. And now that it's the fall, I'm calling people up again. And when I ask them, would you vote for this particular candidate or please go vote? I always end up, yesterday I said, do you have any questions, ma'am? And sometimes people want to know, when is early voting or when can I vote or whatever. And this lady went, how can we fix this? How can we get rid of Trump? And she just went on and on. She was so upset. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, I just listened and I said, sounds like you would make a great volunteer. Would you be willing to call people? So over this past 2 weeks, I found 2 in the Champions area and 2 in the Kingwood area. And these areas tend to be Republican, very, very vocal Republicans who are quite rude. If I say anything that's Democrat or anything that is kind or anything politically correct. So we kind of keep a low profile. I've had my Biden sign stolen out of the yard twice. It now has to be inside of a window, and we shine a light on it at night. The other candidate signs have not been stolen, but we filed a police report, and the police came out. So.
Excellent. But, people have been talking for a long time about this silent Trump vote. I think this election around is not a silent Trump vote. It's a silent non-Trump vote. In other words, I have been finding a lot of my Republican folk as well. A few months ago, a Republican friend of mine tapped me on the back and he slapped me on the back, actually. And he said, I just want to let you know I'm going to make you happy. And I'm like,
wow.
He said, this is a staunch Republican guy who actually voted for Trump as well. He said, I'm going to make your day. I'm going to make you happy. I am voting straight line Democrat this time around because we have to do something. And as I talk to people all over, I don't know, I get the same kind of response as well. That is a lot of people that they won't tell it to their Republican friends, but they know that, like you, we are super progressives, so they go out there and they say, we are going to be voting this way. And what I try to tell people, Deanie, as we talk to them is, hey, you don't have to go ahead and tell anybody, your friends and all of that to who you're voting for. Just remember, when you go into that booth, it's between you, your machine, and your God. So you can do whatever you want, just vote your interest. And if you vote in your interest, you're voting the way we see things.
Yeah. And that's so true. It's just easy to be a volunteer for phone banks. You're provided with the scripts, you're provided with training, and you just call up people and say, please go vote. And most people are happy. We're leaving messages when we can. And it's just a reminder So I think this time there will be the silent Biden voter. And I think that people have had enough. It is not fair that 39% of people think abortion is horrible and should be totally outlawed, and they rule the country. If you don't want to have an abortion, don't get an abortion. I don't think that a minority of 40% should dictate everything. The way it is that federal judges are lifetime appointments, and hopefully, people would appoint someone who will interpret the law, because we do have some judges on the Supreme Court who were appointed by a Democrat, and they've had some fairly conservative rules. Even Justice Ginsburg, for as much as I like her, she's had one or two rulings that I was like, oh, as an educator, well, I don't know, but what is happening now is we have far-right activist judges. And the truth is, they say, we have to go back to the Constitution the way it was when it was written. Well, America is not what it was when it was designed. Only white men with land could vote. If we went back to that idea of Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all the others, the framers of the Constitution, John Hancock, and no, that's not what America is. We can't just have rich white men vote, who own land, by the way. So we have evolved, the country has evolved, and we need to continue that evolution towards a more perfect union.
I would love to end it there, but I should have asked the questions in such a manner that I could get that at a different ending. But because I want to talk about something that is very important, your devotion. You actually hurt yourself doing this work, and that wasn't enough to stop you. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it didn't hurt myself doing the work. I went out several weekends, and we met at like 7 o'clock in the morning. We divided up the door hangers, and we assigned ourselves apartment complexes, and I went and coordinated that. And then I was on a walk in my neighborhood and took a little trot through the woods, and I'm a retired teacher. I work part-time at my house, and I decided to jump the creek. The creek was only like 2 feet wide. I thought, yeah, I can do that. Well, I fell, I slipped, I broke my ankle. So now I am totally homebound. It's been 5 weeks ago, and I am now working hard, walking in a shoe, but I am totally committed to phoning, and Zoom meetings, and getting people to volunteer, and just doing everything from my home to be as activist as possible. So broken foot, smoking foot, didn't stop me.
Look, I can attest to that, because it's been said that even on a Sunday, you appear on Zoom calls and Zoom meetings and Zoom voter registration, on all these kinds of things. So you keep up the good work, Deanie. It was my pleasure to speak to you. Before I go, is there one thing you want to tell the listening audience right now before we close this out?
Go vote, and tell all your friends to vote for every single Democrat, from the first name on the ticket to the last name on the ticket, because we're not going to have a blue wave. We're going to have a blue tsunami.
Clear enough. Deanie Allen, thank you so kindly for having appeared on Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.